urban populations are growing at an astounding rate. More than 70% of the world's population will live in cities by 2050, resulting in an influx of more than 3 billion people over the next 4 decades. Now, joining us now to discuss cities and infrastructure to lead to development is David O Brien. He's a global leader for KPMG's Global Center of Excellence for Cities. A very good evening to you, Dave. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, is building cities the source of economic growth, and how do governments actually go about it?
Well, you know, your statistics on the introduction were true. Building cities are the economic growth of a country. When you get right down to it, all of the things that happen in an economy happen in cities. And so, as cities begin to expand, one of the most important things is how do they provide the services, the basic services to the public. So you can imagine a city today, maybe Johannesburg, maybe another city in the world, Mumbai, Delhi, Beijing, pick your city. The infrastructure services that are in a city today are barely able to maintain the existing population that exists right now. Using your statistic, which is an accurate statistic, it's the one I use quite often, 3 billion new people coming into cities by 2050. And the 3 countries that that's going to happen in is India, China, and the continent of Africa. So you can imagine an already stressed infrastructure system trying to accommodate that. It's almost overbearing when you think about it.
Indeed, like you say, we've got here in Africa, we've got an influx in terms of people getting into these cities right now. But how will governments get over the challenge of water as well as food scarcity?
I'm a firm believer in the concept of infrastructure leading development. So before you allow massive development to take place, you have to get your infrastructure right. If you get your infrastructure right, then the population can arrive in coincident with the increase in infrastructure. I know that in Africa, water is a significant issue. I think I saw a statistic the other day that about 40% of the water is lost, either through leakage or theft. What that tells me is that the infrastructure is not good. Water is lost because it's leaking out of the infrastructure, which is broken. So you have to begin to fix that infrastructure. It takes very tough, hard decisions on the part of the political leaders and the government to make those decisions. It's all about, in my opinion, prioritizing your expenditures. You can't do all things to all people at the same time. You have to say, our priority is maybe fixing the water system. Our priority is perhaps fixing the transportation system and trying to decrease congestion. Our priority may be improving the water treatment systems or the sanitary sewer systems, things like that. But it's all about making priorities. And the public who use these services have to be prepared and understand that it's expensive to maintain them to the standard that the public wants to have in order to live properly.
And it's quite interesting. We have here in South Africa, we've got the population going haywire in terms of the 16% increase in tariffs by Eskom. So would you say that it's a good time to be increasing right now, and it has to be done?
You know, I saw the Eskom discussion just before ours, and I would say yes. Believe it or not, in my prior life, I ran the largest municipal electrical company in Canada, Toronto Hydro, and we had the same issues. And the reason you have to increase rates is because you haven't over a long period of time, and the infrastructure begins to deteriorate. And in the case of the electrical utility, or in the case of infrastructure, the infrastructure begins to fail. And if you wait a long time to have that happen, that 16% will be 20% in 10 years. And if you wait another 10 years, it'll be 40%.
So rather feel the pinch now, that's what you're saying.
Bite the bullet now and get it over with.
Yeah. And you are advising the Mexican government in terms of building a city there. Has the process gone? How far?
A fascinating subject. There's a city in Tabasco province. I guess that's where the Tabasco comes from. But there was a city there that was destroyed in a massive mudslide, literally destroyed. And rather than say, let's clear it out and fix it up, the mayor of the city said, we're going to leave it and we're going to build a new city. And they had 1,000 hectares of land available. And so we are advising through our global people in Mexico, and with some assistance from my office, we're advising them on the proper strategy to build the city. So we're thinking 50 years out, not 10 years out. We're thinking about integrating all the services that you would normally think of. So it's not just putting roads in place and water systems and sewer systems. What about the social support systems that have to be in a city? What about the cultural support systems that have to be in the city? What about how the city will work from an integrated planning point of view around transportation? So it's a wonderful opportunity to have almost a clean slate of paper and say we're going to plan it properly before it happens.
Now, bringing it back to the African continent, where do you see the major challenge being in terms of African economies building those big mega cities that we have out there?
Well, I'm a believer in this concept. Big mega cities are good, but they reach a point where they become too big. And you get to a point, if you go to, for example, Mumbai or Delhi in India, those cities are in desperate shape. They've grown to the point where they're almost ready to implode. They can't provide the very basic services. So I'm of the opinion that a city can only get so big before it stops working. And I think you have to have satellite cities in relation to the big cities with extraordinarily good transportation systems and extraordinarily sound development that is a live-work relationship in the satellite cities to avoid people coming into the city. I'm from Toronto, Canada. Actually, I'm from Mississauga, Canada, which is a city right beside Toronto. But the Toronto city is about 2.5 million. The greater region is about 5 million. Today, more people come out of Toronto to work in the suburban areas than from the suburban areas going into the city. That's the new phenomenon on mega cities.